I want to start today with a number. Researchers at SUNY, the City University of New York, spent 2024 building a computational model. They tracked employees moving through different stages of engagement, from fully invested to overextended to running under empty to burned out. At each stage, they measured two things: work days and reduced output on days they did show up. Here's what they found. $1,824 per manager per year. That's what one manager in a state of burnout costs their organization annually. In missed days and reduced productivity alone. Not healthcare, not turnover, not the institutional knowledge that walks out the door. Just the work that doesn't get done while they're still showing up. And for executives, it's over $20,000 per person per year. Here's the comparison that stopped me. Burnout costs the organization almost 3 times more than healthcare insurance and 17 times more than training. 17 times. This is not a wellness problem. This is a business problem. And today I want to show you exactly where it comes from and what it's doing to your organization right now. Hello, I'm Natalie Luke, the host of UnCeiling You podcast. Let's get into it. Here's the mechanism. I'm going one level deeper than the research. They measured the cost. I'm naming the cause. And the research tells us burnout is expensive. What it doesn't fully answer is what creates the conditions for burnout to take root in the first place. It's not workload alone. Yelp's latest data found that fewer than half of employees, only 45%, clearly know what's expected of them at work. That's not a motivation gap. That's an ownership gap. Gallup specifically identified clarity of expectations as one of the engagement factors with the steepest decline in 2024. When people don't know where their responsibility ends, or maybe even starts, they extend it to fill the space, not because they're reckless, but because they're capable. Here's the mechanism. When responsibility isn't clearly defined in an organization, it doesn't stay unclaimed. It flows towards whoever is the most capable, towards whoever steps in the first. And it may not even be the most capable. It could be whoever steps in first, towards whoever can be counted on to hold things together. And from the outside, it looks exactly like high performance. Strong reviews, reliable execution, the person you'd recommend for a promotion. But something else is happening underneath. Over-responsibility doesn't just exhaust people, it erodes their trust in the organization and the organization's ability to function without them. I call this the trust tax, and it compounds slowly, invisibly, until suddenly it isn't invisible anymore. Now, here's what the research says about what actually fixes this. Because here's the part that most burnout conversations skip entirely. We have the cost data, we have the cascade. What does the evidence say that actually works? Researchers have now studied burnout interventions across dozens of organizations, and the findings are consistent. High workload alone doesn't cause burnout. The absence of role clarity is what converts workload into burnout. 2025 structural equation modeling study confirmed it directly. Role clarity significantly mediates the relationships between workload and burnout. The same workload, different outcomes depending entirely on whether people know what is theirs. A systematic review of organizational interventions found that something else. Individual wellness programs, mindfulness apps, and resilience workshops, self-care initiatives showed no substantial effects beyond 3 months. But participatory organizational interventions, the kind that clarify roles, define ownership, and structure how responsibility moves through a team, those reduce burnout for 12 months or more. Not because people change, but because the system did. The interventions with the lasting effects are the ones that address the structure, not the person. Role clarity isn't a soft skill, it's a mechanism. Here's why I'm telling you this. The Responsibility Reset Notebook that I'm going to tell you about in a few minutes is not a mindset workbook. It's a structured role clarity tool to give your brain one of the things the research says is missing: a precise map of what is yours to carry, what isn't, and how to stop holding the weight of both. And when I work with organizations directly through project facilitation, what I'm doing is keeping people focused on their own work, preventing the finger pointing, preventing the work going to the wrong people, preventing the drift of responsibility towards whoever decides to pick it up, even if they don't have the skills, clarifying who owns what before it becomes a problem. That's not intuition. That's exactly what the evidence says produces lasting change. Let me show you how the tax accumulates. It happens in 4 stages. Most organizations are somewhere in the middle of this right now. Stage 1, absorption. What happens? Capable people who love to take initiative start carrying responsibility that wasn't formally assigned to them. They step in before anyone else can. Problems get solved. Things hold together, kind of like a Band-Aid. What it looks like is everything looks fine. Performance metrics are strong. The capable person seems engaged. The cost? Bandwidth. It narrows quietly. You can only be a Band-Aid for so many systems. They're managing the system instead of leading it. The SUNY model tracks this precisely. The employee moves from engaged to overextended. Output drops slightly and nobody notices yet, but the cost is already accumulating. Then here comes stage 2, vigilance. What happens? Because they're carrying more than their role requires, their brain stays on high alert. They stop bringing problems to leadership because they've learned that surfacing a problem means owning it. And what it looks like is they seem fine, maybe a little quieter, slightly less collaborative, solving things alone instead of surfacing them. And what it costs? Information stops flowing upward. Leadership loses visibility. Decisions get made without the full picture. The Gallup poll found that only 31% of managers were engaged in 2024, the steepest decline of any employee group. Their chief workplace scientist said manager engagement affects team engagement, which affects productivity. Business performance is at risk. Then comes stage 3, disconnection. What happens? The team around them notices. When one person absorbs organizational weight, others either step back or quietly resent the imbalance. What it looks like at this stage. Meetings feel less collaborative, a passive energy. The team stops offering ideas that might become their responsibility. What it costs? Psychological safety drops. Innovation slows. The team becomes a collection of individuals protecting their bandwidth. The Gallup poll shows U.S. employee engagement hit an 11-year low in 2024. The steepest decline factor, clarity of expectations. When people don't know what's theirs, they protect what they have. Then comes stage 5, exit or erosion. What happens? The capable person either leaves or stays and gradually shrinks. They stop doing the things that made them excellent. They protect themselves by doing less. And what that looks like is turnover that surprises everyone, or A high performer who used to lead from the front now is doing just enough. The cost? You lose a person or you lose their best work. The organizational capacity that depended on them disappears. The SUNY model shows executive level burnout costs over $20,000 per person per year in lost productivity alone, before turnover, before the search, before the 12 months it takes to replace to reach to full effectiveness. The trust tax isn't paid all at once. It's paid in small increments at each stage of the cascade until the account is empty. And the most expensive part? Most of it never shows up in a budget line. It shows up in delayed decisions, in projects that stalled with no clear reason, and an exit interview you didn't see coming. I want to give you a quick diagnostic. 3 signs your organization is paying the trust tax right now. After each one, ask yourself, do you recognize these? First, your best people are also your most exhausted people. Not because their workload is objectively the heaviest, it's because they're carrying the organizational weight that was never formally assigned. Think about your top performer right now. Are they thriving or surviving? The SUNY study tracked this precisely at the overextended stage, still showing up, still delivering. Productivity losses are already accumulating. The cost meter starts before anybody will call it a problem. Step 2. Problems are getting solved, but you're losing visibility to them. You're finding out about the problem after it's been resolved, not while there's still time to help. People have stopped bringing things forward because surfacing a problem means owning it. When was the last time someone brought you a problem where they didn't also bring you a solution? Gallup found that 29% of employees say they lack either clear or honest communication from their leaders. When information flows down but not up, decisions at the top get made without the full picture. Step 3, your team collaborates less than they used to, and they're not sure why. It's not a conflict. It's a quiet pulling back. People doing good work inside their lanes, but not reaching across them. Is your team getting better at working together or more careful about it? A WellHub 2025 research found that as burnout deepens, collaboration stalls and communication breaks down, even in teams that are technically still functioning. If any of these landed, you're not dealing with a performance problem. You're dealing with a responsibility clarity problem. The symptoms show up in the team. The source is the system. So what changes when you fix it? What does Monday look like when this is actually working? Here's what I've seen happen when organizations get clarity on responsibility. Decisions that used to take 3 meetings take 1, because everyone in the room knows who owns the call. Problems surface earlier because people stop protecting themselves from ownership and start trusting that naming a problem won't make it theirs. Your best people start leading instead of managing because they're no longer absorbing the weight that was never formally theirs to carry. When you have high engagement, you have 51% lower turnover and 23% higher productivity. When people know what is expected, when ownership is clear, when they trust the system, turnover drops by more than half and productivity increases by nearly a quarter. That's not a wellness outcome. That's a business outcome. Just know that the work doesn't get smaller or less, but what does get smaller and less is the weight. When people know where their responsibility ends, they can give everything to what is actually theirs, and that's when you get your best work instead of their managed work. Let me bring this back to where we started. Researchers measured what it costs when capable people carry more than they've been assigned. They tracked it stage by stage. They put the numbers on what most organizations treat as invisible. And now the research also tells us what works. Not wellness programs, not resilience training, role clarity. That's what works. Defining what's yours and what isn't before the weight accumulates. If you're listening and you recognize yourself in the cascade, the vigilance that doesn't switch off, the weight that follows you home, the sense that you're holding more than you agreed to, I built something for exactly that moment. It's called the Responsibility Reset Notebook. The researchers measured what burnout costs. Other researchers confirmed the role clarity is what stops it. I built the tool that makes role clarity practical. 4 sections, 4 exercises, a clear map of what's yours to carry and what isn't, and how to stop holding the weight of both. Not because everything is solved, but because everything is sorted. $17. The link is in the show notes. It made a big difference in my leadership and in my peace and sleep at night. I know it'll make a difference in yours too. You'll want to take advantage of this. And if you're a leader thinking about your organization right now, the cascade I described, the diagnostic questions you just sat with, the numbers on what this is actually costing, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Not a pitch, not a proposal, just a conversation about what you're saying, whether this framework might be useful. That's where the best work usually starts. Reach out to me. The link is in the show notes. So once again, I'm Natalie Luke, your host, and this is the UnCeiling You podcast. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week.